Hello, and thank you for joining us. I'm Deborah McGrath, Principal Product Marketing Engineer with ServiceNow and last Thursday's host. Joining us live from the Agile 2023 conference in Orlando, we're thrilled to be joined by Fred Champlain, who's our own ServiceNow Agile evangelist. Fred is actually a SAFe practice consultant who joined ServiceNow after spending 15 years at IBM, working on digital transformation for clients across several industries. In this webinar, he'll be discussing digital transformation with Scaled Agile Framework, Lean Portfolio Management. While most of what we'll be discussing and showing are features that are available with our Utah release, this presentation may contain forward-looking statements that reflect the current beliefs of ServiceNow, all based on current information available. Actual results may differ materially and should not be relied upon in making purchasing decisions. During today's webinar, Fred will be discussing some of the common questions that everyone has about key reasons organizations are moving to Scaled Agile Framework. This will be followed by a discussion of how ServiceNow supports Portfolio SAFe and Lean Portfolio Management. He'll also talk about the importance of goals and OKRs. Fred will share some guidance on how to handle release cycles and minimum marketable features, or MMF, in the continuous delivery pipeline. We'll take a look at how SPM supports SAFe operational value streams, and he'll provide a sneak peek at some exciting capabilities coming in the future, including product feedback and Gen AI. And we'll wrap with a look at upcoming events, and we'll save a little time at the end for Q&A. And now I'd like to welcome Fred.
Well, thank you, Deborah. It's a pleasure to be here with everyone today. Very excited to talk and share where SAFe and SPM fit together. So these are great topics, and I'm looking forward to a good discussion here.
Awesome. Always great to talk with you, Fred. Before we jump into your presentation, would you be able to tell us what's been happening at the Agile Alliance conference?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I'm at the Agile 2023 conference in Orlando, Florida. There's a few trends that being at the show here for 4 days now, very clear that there's an interest in portfolios. That's been a trend, but really it's prominent this year as organizations have matured in various ways of adopting Agile and implementing Agile, and maybe sometimes re-implementing. Everyone's maturing at this point. They're interested in the things that they need to do to scale up Agile, to run a portfolio, to fund a portfolio. So it's really exciting to see that.
Thanks for sharing that, Fred. I've got a couple questions for you. So much of what we do here at ServiceNow is cross-functional, involving multiple teams, planning and executing work over multiple quarters, all while enabling executives to understand our overall status, or the big picture, if you will, at any point in time. Is that one of the key reasons people are moving to Scaled Agile, to enable everyone to better see the bigger picture? One other question. ServiceNow supports Portfolio SAFe and LPM. That's really our sweet spot. What are the common challenges that drive our customers to implement a lean portfolio?
Well, the portfolio, as you can see here, and just for reference and give us a context, since this conversation is around SAFe, but this can apply really in any way of scaling Agile. SAFe happens to be one way of doing it, and companies will use SAFe or not use SAFe, or maybe they're inspired by some of the concepts and principles in SAFe. So companies, as you look at this kind of from bottom up, typically is how companies have adopted Agile practices. And over time, they aggregate and pull together into teams of teams, sometimes teams of teams of teams, and eventually they have a need for a portfolio. However, also some companies, more so recently, will start at a top level and also implement a portfolio along with implementing Agile with teams as well. And the reason the need for Agile and scaling Agile is really driven from as you can see in the big picture here, for business agility. And we'll talk a lot more about that. But business agility really responding to demands in the marketplace. So companies are responding and finding new ways to work in a more aligned manner, a more efficient manner, and in a way that's aligned to customers. These are the things that really make for competitiveness in the marketplace, whether it's a product or a service, whether it's consumer, whether it's a business to business, almost anything needs to be customer centric at this point. So by pulling together from a number of good practices, if you will, and concepts, we can look at how to execute in a more aligned manner that really brings products to market earlier, and thus we're delivering value to customers earlier as well.
I have a simpler question for you. Can you comment on the importance of goals and OKRs for business agility? I know it's a huge focus for ServiceNow. I'm just wondering your thoughts.
Yeah, goals and OKRs are fundamental to aligning investments. So why don't we take a look here? And what we're going to do today is really look at where in SPM how we relate our functionality to SAFe. So first of all, we are very customer centric, and we're always thinking about value being delivered, and that's the underlying theme of all of what we're doing. So we can't lose sight of that. So as you can see here, beginning with strategy, we use goals and OKRs to really guide the prioritization and decisions that we make in terms of how we fund and invest in products and services. And this results in a strategic roadmap that we work with and we execute from as we build. And so the OKRs in particular are very popular. It's a goal framework. And by using OKRs, we're able to really have a transparent way to share and align around common goals. And it also allows us to monitor and make adjustments along the way. One of the critical themes in reasons for scaling up Agile is that fundamentally we are working to reduce our cycle time or our time to bring new features to a market, because we need to learn from customers faster of what their needs are. We need to make those improvements, and we'll look at how we do that. But fundamentally, we use OKRs to really keep us on track and also to understand when we're not on track. And it also guides us in the types of adjustments we need to make. So if we look at how we do this, you can see in SPM that we have the capability here in our goals framework. And by the way, we use OKRs here today because A, they're popular. B, also SAFe is an advocate of OKRs, but there are other goal frameworks, and some companies and enterprises use a combination of goals that they may have their own approach. Maybe they're using a hybrid with OKRs. And we can accommodate any and all of those. We have a very flexible goal framework that we can use. And here you can see goals and then some targets here, for example. So we have baseline targets. And so we have a very accommodating way. And this will allow customers to move from maybe their approach, if they're interested in adopting OKRs, or there's other frameworks that people are using as well. So these are the guiding parameters, if you will, that allow us to revisit, to monitor, and to make continuous prioritization decisions that we'll talk about in a few minutes. So as we look at planning, we can see here from a priority perspective that we have opportunities for investment. And so what we want to do is align the roadmap using these OKRs and being driven from an OKR perspective. So when we say OKR, it's an objective and several, typically a handful of key results informed from KPIs, if you're familiar with KPIs. So here we can see that we've got a roadmap with the planning, and then we can see across the top our objectives as well. So 20% reduction in technical debt. And these are milestones on this particular roadmap in a digital transformation, for example. And we've gotten the objectives of becoming a #1 digital financial provider, build an inclusive enterprise, delight customers. These are representative of frequent top-level goals in an organization that we're looking both from a revenue or performance perspective. We're thinking about inclusivity from an employee perspective. We're thinking about delighting customers as well. So as we move and look at from a goals and a strategy and a roadmap perspective, we also have to be very aware of our enterprise architecture, because after all, we're building digital products, and those digital products have what SAFe refers to as an architectural runway. So as we think about our planning, we have to make decisions around not only the product itself, but also the underlying technologies, because frequently this is where dependencies lie, and those dependencies can become blockers. And one of the critical aspects of scaling is managing dependencies. That's one of the hardest aspects of building up an agile organization, and is managing those dependencies, anticipating them. And frequently, many of these dependencies are technology based. So in SAFe, it's essential that we have architects at the table, and architects have of course, models and business capabilities that they work from, and the applications that support those business capabilities. So it's very important to have information at hand to inform their decisions on forming and maintaining the architectural runway. That's a key concept in SAFe. So how we do that is we have APM, for example, in our enterprise architecture workspace, where we can look at the business capabilities. And for example, here you can see that we have a mix of capabilities and an application called Digital Wallet. So by looking at the fitness, if you will, of that application and the capabilities, from a TBM perspective, we can make decisions on what's the best course of action in building out and prioritizing for our architectural runway. So here, as we look at our strategy and we think about demand across the portfolio, and that portfolio has several intakes from employees, from customers, from ideas. And also, of course, we have service and application owners that have their needs as well for operational enhancements. We may have some new epics that we need to bring into the pipeline, into demand. We also have product feedback, and we'll talk about that a little bit later. We have some product ideas as well. And we bring all of this together. Business relationship managers work together with product owners, product management, and architects to really look at this demand pipeline, which we then pull into a planning process. So here we have an ideation. So looking at our ideas portal of how we can actually bring these potential enhancements together and look at them for candidates that we can bring into our demand. Ultimately, these may land into a lean portfolio backlog for prioritization. So from a digital portfolio management perspective, we can look at those capabilities and importantly understand what those dependencies are. So we want to always be cognizant of dependencies. So digital portfolio management gives us that capability, as well as combined with application portfolio management. These are the critical tools in terms of maintaining that architectural runway and making decisions that really are meant to ensure that we don't have difficult blockers to resolve. So as we have our demand, we've got our architecture, we have our strategy and a strategic roadmap. We've got our initiatives. We really go in and plan. And this cadence or the frequency of this planning is continuous. Many companies are moving from annual planning into quarterly planning, but really the monitoring and the execution is on a continuous basis. And having an integrated system is critical to keeping this on track and having the goals and OKRs available to do that. So at this point, we've got the alignment is so critical And this is where we're putting together a PMO, enterprise PMO perhaps, or a value management office. Typically, we've got a number of parties. This might be also where we have the value stream leaders, if you're organized by value stream. We have, of course, as I mentioned, architects. So this is also where in SAFe that we would do PI planning, for example, would be one of the activities that falls into a line, and then continuous delivery as well from that. So as we look at this from a LPM perspective, we would think maybe about quarterly business reviews and the activities that are involved in updating the portfolio and making portfolio decisions on what to invest in. Do we continue investing in a feature, for example, or do we stop investing? Maybe it's not turning out the way that we anticipated. We can look at the portfolio from multiple lenses. So here you can see business capability for architects. In the middle, you can see a product lens for product managers. And over to the right, you can see a value stream view, which look like this here in terms of looking at the transformation roadmap, looking at the backlog to prioritize all work together. So you can see the types of work here, an epic, a SAFe epic, a project, a demand. So this gives us a comprehensive view so we can holistically look at our investment and make decisions that are coordinated and aligned. And that's what will allow us to have better decision-making, more responsive decision-making. Here we have a roadmap looking at how we can do this independent of the methodology. You can see the strategic objective and build an inclusive, delight customers, as we saw earlier. You see demands, maybe Scrum epics and SAFe epics together here. And then you can see the dependencies. And again, dependencies are really the critical items that we're looking for. This is one of the major benefits of doing PI planning and working with an architectural runway, is that we can see these and visualize these using SPM. So as we look through a lens, we can look at the epics associated to a particular product, for example. So we can isolate this into a particular product and see what is on the roadmap here. And again, you can see the dependencies as well. So for this bank loan application, we have a customer engagement center integration APIs that support that. And we'll build those APIs. We'll build a loan application that are then tied into the engagement center. So you can see those dependencies here, along with some milestones. So we've got PI1 and PI2. So as we think about delivery.
Oh, Fred, I just wanted to actually chime in here. And
sure.
One of the things that you mentioned earlier was reducing cycle times. And this kind of hits home for me personally as a ServiceNow content creator. I develop a lot of product and solution videos. And the impact of our accelerated release cycle with frequent delivery of new features from our own agile teams and arts, it's hard to keep up sometimes. What's your guidance about minimum marketable features and the continuous delivery pipeline and the impact this has on the organization, both good and bad?
Sure. The concept of what's called a minimal marketable feature, and sometimes people will refer to this as a minimal marketable product. The idea is that we don't want to build out things that are too big, that take too long. We want to get smaller chunks or iterations or increments out to the market, out to our customers. We want them to see value sooner than later. So the idea is that we want to also get their feedback. We want to learn from their feedback and make adjustments. We want to make several adjustments along the way. We want to work smaller, if you will. So that's a critical aspect of scaling agile and also being responsive to the market. As markets become increasingly faster paced, we will need to continue to find ways of building smaller pieces of functionality, delivering those quickly, and listening and gathering the feedback from customers. So a good example that we all mostly experience is applications on your mobile phone. Whether you have an Android or an iPhone, you receive application updates daily. And so whether you've got an auto set and you might not notice it so much, but your applications are updating. And if you track any particular application, you'll notice that there's frequently a cadence of a week or every 2 weeks, which generally corresponds to a sprint from those development teams. Sometimes an application may update more, or I should say less frequently, maybe on a quarterly basis. And that corresponds to organizations that are planning on a quarterly basis, releasing on a quarterly basis. So we actually all as consumers have a ready reference in our hands, literally, of where Agile and typically scaled Agile is being used. All those mobile applications, they have an enterprise architecture associated with them. There's APIs and databases in the background, a lot of infrastructure and cloud typically, of course. And so all of that is being updated in a very short time frame of a couple of weeks. So that is the challenge for us, is how do we scale that up? It's easy to do as a startup. It's harder to do as you're an enterprise, an organization, and do that in a coordinated way. And that's what we're looking at here as you look at strategize and aligning. Aligning is so critical. Looking at a central demand pipeline is critical. So as we look at delivering here, of course, we can deliver with a central demand. We have a universal backlog that we can bring all work together. So here you see where we can even include defects and security items, and we can consider risk, as well as the traditional, as you think about epics and features and stories, as well as for ServiceNow, we can also look at programs and projects as well. So we have a very powerful mechanism to bring this together in a true portfolio view and apply the same capacity management, resourcing, and prioritization together. So here you can see sprints, of course, in terms of how we coordinate our work. This is for looking at a SAFe Agile release train, looking at the stories in this particular view for the PI1, for the loan offerings enhancements art. So this is part of the loan and origination value stream. And of course, you can see dependencies here. So this is a look at when we're planning our work and delivering and executing our work of what this looks like. It's all from a SAFe perspective. We would typically see, you can see here stories and also features, with arts being the vehicle for future delivery. And then when we look at features aggregating up into epics. Now also we're able to integrate into Jira software and Azure DevOps as well. So from a portfolio perspective, we can also be an umbrella into other systems that are managing work. And we can bring together and use the advantages of LPM to plan and then distribute back the stories, for example, that may be actually in Jira software, and to get updates in a bi-directional real-time integration for both Jira software and Azure DevOps. So as we start releasing and we build our application, of course, we're thinking about release management and using DevOps in a CI/CD tool chain, all again, typically cloud-based. We're looking at when to release to be competitive, and we think about our time frame of our builds. We really need to have smaller increments of work going out to customers. So by having a tight release management system, a high quality automated DevOps pipeline, that enables us to quickly get product and value out to customers. And as we do release, we do find, obviously, there's incidents that occur. There's also feedback items that come back in as well. And we can, again, bring that back into our work and into our backlogs to be prioritized. Ultimately, we're doing all of this work to understand how are we impacting our OKRs. So what we want to look at here is a delivery, track our status, of course, see where we're at, and correspondingly understand where there might be issues and blockers that we need to attend to.
And Fred, in support of Lean Agile, we focus on program execution and continuous improvement through feedback cycles, closing the loop back to strategy. And we have a new product feedback application coming out with our Vancouver release. How do you see that benefiting our customers?
Well, that's going to be a tremendous use of generative AI. So as we see here, we've got the ability to look at benefits realization, which closes our loop back to OKRs. And you can see here we can track progress. So if we think about these additional capabilities, and again, thinking from a safe harbor perspective, this is all in development and subject to change. So if we look at the feedback, will really make this a more efficient process. This can be an overwhelming process for product managers in particular, of having so much feedback. And so generative AI will allow us to really look at the trends and to essentially do grouping of ideas and bring those and surface those automatically so we can actually spend time elsewhere. We can see here, for example, the auto tagging facial recognition are the top items that we would want to think about prioritizing and funding. So this way we can very quickly take customer feedback, customer sentiment, and pull that back into our strategic planning process, closing that loop, and then going again and doing another PI, for example, for another quarter so we can bring new functionality and new value to customers. Deborah?
Next, we have several events and resources. On Thursday, August 31st, our monthly Last Thursdays webinar will be 30 minutes with Chris Canella and Aaron Roberts, enhancements to our resource management capabilities. Before that, on August 23rd, Live On Now will present an APM webinar on future state modeling. And on August 29th, we have an APM workshop to enable you to get more value from your application portfolio management efforts by leveraging the ServiceNow Enterprise Architecture Workspace. You can register for these Live on ServiceNow events at community.servicenow.com under events. And please note that you can view this SAFe webinar again and access any of our prior Last Thursdays webinars on demand from our YouTube playlist, Last Thursdays with SPM webinars. For additional resources, please visit our SPM SAFe and Agile product pages at servicenow.com/products/scaled agile framework or servicenow.com/products/agile development. Fred, again, wealth of information, really appreciate it. Thank you to John Lim, co-producer of our Last Thursdays webinar. And of course, thank you so much to our Last Thursdays audience for taking time to join us. We'll see you on our next Last Thursdays webinar.